People of Reddit, what was your I'm so fired moment? Pretty early on in my first real job out of school, I'd say about 10 days in, I was driving in a snowstorm and only one side of the road had been plowed. I go into a straight stretch that's nearing a big turn and some guy in a little red coupe is on my side of the road and I wound up putting the work truck into a culvert and bending the axle. I was able to get it out with some help, but it was basically undrivable, and I had to ditch it in a parking lot outside of a Native American reservation. My boss was totally okay with it, but he was really weirded out about the police being castled, which they weren't, and he was relieved at that. Worked for a medical device manufacturer as a repair tech. These were huge and vastly complicated machines. Last I checked they were selling them for upwards of $3 million. Every single piece is top of the line. So during my first time actually repairing a live one in the lab, decked out in a full biohazard bunny suit, I need to power cycle a sub-assembly. Part doesn't have a fuse, just a standard barrel jack straight from a transformer. I unplug it and set the cord down and pop WWRRRRRRR. The fucking plug was sent to negative/sleeve hot, so I just shot God knows how much reverse current into God knows what components through the chassis. I'm freaking out, cursing up a storm, wanting to throttle whatever engineer made that design decision. I go to my boss and admit I just destroyed a precision pump/miser worth thousands. His response? Oh, it was that fucking hot plug wasn't IUT. Yay, everyone shorts one of those things out eventually. Shitty design, here's my key. Grab a bother one out of inventory and swap it out. Apparently when operating on that scale thousands of dollars is an inconsequently small amount of money. The next week it happened to a different tech. It would be a full year before they changed the design. I was training 3 people. I grabbed one of their knives to cut some shrink wrap, bunches up the wrap and sliced down. Filleted my finger in the process. My skin was flipped over and you could see the bone. I failed the drug test for pot. More like my I'm so laid off moment. We had a client that we were way high overcharging for our services. I'm talking like these guys were paying easily 10 times what we were charging other clients by that point, and this client was using a fraction of the platform compared to those other clients. I had spent well over a year trying to convince my CEO to reach out and cop to this to save the client. He had signed them in the first place. My CEO wanted me to convince this client to use more of the platform, but I didn't see that as a fix. They were still paying too much for it compared to everyone else. In the end, I had them on the hook for our newest offering, something that I could possibly spin as worth the cost. They ran it up the chain, and their top brass went nuts at what they had already been spending. Cancelled the contract with no option to make things right, exactly as I predicted. I mean, this one client was my paycheck. Period. We weren't making enough off the rest, but my boss didn't blame me if I ended up seeing the writing on the wall and asked to be laid off instead. When I accidentally damaged a work van. It was parked next to a poke and I somehow didn't realize that the wheels were turned, but steering wheel was straight. Also, I wasn't the one who parked it, so when I put it in reverse to back up, it hopped straight into the pole. Minor damage, but damage nonetheless. Our work policy is always damage a vehicle, get drug tested. In which case they'd find THC, because I use it in the evenings to sleep. I thought for sure I was gonna be fired. Called my boss. He goes, just don't let UIT happen again. Thanks for calling me and owning up to it. Never got sent for the drug test. He knows I struggle from insomnia and smoke at night. He's been a really cool boss since day one, and he knows more about me than most people would want their bosses to know. I assume he helped cover for me knowing I would never actually be high on the clock. My oh shit I'm totally fired moment turned into a I didn't get fired because I was immediately honest moment. When I emailed our Friday afternoon after drinking too much. I'm still waiting to see the consequences of that. Late to the party, so I doubt this will get much traction, but the first surgery I scrubbed into in my surgery clerkship in medical school, I accidentally stabbed the patient's liver with a tool called a trocar. Just for some background, In a laparoscopic surgery, typically 3 small incisions are made, and surgical tools and a camera, laparoscope, are inserted in order to perform the surgery. After making the initial incision, a trocar is placed into the incision to widen the incision and to facilitate the passage of tools. Basically, I misjudged how much force I would need to push the trocar through and very slightly nick the patient's liver. I immediately began to sweat and fog up my eye protection thinking I killed the patient. Lol. Luckily, the injury was very minor and I didn't hit any major blood vessels. The surgeon cauterized the area that I hit to stop some minor bleeding, but it was fine. After we saw the patient in a few weeks, after taking out her gallbladder, she was perfectly fine and recovering well. I thought for sure I would have failed that rotation though. Stay tuned for episode 2 of People of Reddit. What was your I'm so fired stories? Thanks for watching.